On tonight's summary of the Israel-Hamas War, Day 147, Al-Qassam brigades published a video stating that 7 Israeli hostages have been killed by IDF bombardments in the Gaza Strip. 3 of them were named and 4 others remained anonymous. The IDF is expanding its activities in western Han Yunis, entering new regions in the refugee camps in the western parts of the city. Artillery fire was also noted in the eastern parts of Deir el-Balah and the central parts of the Strip. Hezbollah's news outlet answered Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati today, stating that the diplomatic negotiations with Israel will not resume until a ceasefire occurs in the Gaza Strip. The summit of Palestinian factions concluded in Russia today. Hamas agreed to a statement about the PLO being a unified representative of the Palestinians. Hello everyone. I'm Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here bringing you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas War. It is currently the evening of March 1st, 2024 in the United States, the morning of March 2nd, 2024 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, the Al-Qassam brigades put out a video message today stating that 7 hostages held in the Gaza Strip have been killed in IDF bombardments. 3 of them, Yoram Metzger, Chaim Perry, and Amiram Cooper, were named, and the others were left anonymous. The pictures in the video, shown here, imply that 2 more are civilians and 2 other are IDF soldiers who were kidnapped due to their shadow being in military gear. Hamas has been gathering information about the different hostages held throughout the Strip in preparation for a possible hostage deal, and in the statement, the Al-Qassam brigade stated that it was discovered that these 7 were killed, possibly implying that these were hostages that were guarded by Hamas units who lost contact with the organization, and this is unclear when they actually died, presuming that this statement is in fact true. I will add that in the past, Hamas has put out statements about hostages that were killed in the Gaza Strip, some of these by IDF bombardments, some of these in other circumstances. In most cases, this turned out to be true. In one instance, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad put out a statement saying that 1 hostage was killed, and it turns out that he was not. However, in all other statements, this has been accurate. Other news related to the hostage situation. CNN reported today that despite the 8 truck incident yesterday, negotiations are still progressing. Now, it's important to clarify that while negotiations have not officially been frozen as a result of the incident, they are in fact stalled as all sides are waiting for Hamas's response. As a reminder, after the Second Paris Summit, where a framework was agreed upon between Israel and the negotiators, Hamas informed negotiators that the framework is problematic and requires changing, but the movement never gave its official response to this framework. It is very likely that there is ongoing debate within the Hamas movement about how hard a line to take in the negotiations, and this is leading to their stalling. The answer is expected to arrive in the coming days, possibly this weekend. However, it still remains to be seen. Speaking to reporters today, U.S. President Biden stated that he hopes that a ceasefire will be reached by Ramadan. However, he acknowledged that we are not there yet. I remind everyone that Ramadan is 10 days away, starting on March 10th, March 11th. Moving on to the situation in the Gaza Strip, there was a barrage of rockets sent from the Gaza Strip targeting southern parts of Israel. These targeted the areas of Ashkelon and Zikim. Regarding the fighting in the Gaza Strip, in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, airstrikes were reported against the launching sites of Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. These are sites from which rockets were launched in the last several days, as well as against tunnel entrances and Hamas structures. Substantial bombardments were noted in the Beit Hanun area as well, with many casualties reported. In the central parts of the Gaza Strip, major bombings were reported in the Al-Nuseirat refugee camp. It was not stated by the IDF what these were targeting. It was stated by different news sites on the ground that many casualties were reported. Some sites said 4 casualties, others said upwards of a dozen. In addition, artillery fire was noted in the eastern parts of Deir el-Balah. In the southern parts of the Gaza Strip, in Han Yunis, that's where the bulk of the fighting remains, the IDF is reportedly expanding its operations in the western parts of the city, entering new parts of the outskirt camps, that is, the refugee camps in the outskirts of Han Yunis. Raids were carried out in the homes of senior Hamas officials in the area, and ongoing gun battles are also reported. In addition, the IDF reported dozens of Hamas operatives were arrested as they hid in schools in the region. Presumably these are schools in which internally displaced people are also hiding. Substantial weaponry was also discovered in these areas. In addition, intensive fighting was also reported in the heart of the city of Han Yunis, with helicopters involved targeting Hamas operatives from the sky. Other news related to the Gaza Strip. Israel's expanded cabinet met today as the ministers were briefed on the hostage talks. Some of the ministers insisted that if a deal is not reached by Ramadan, that Israel does not stop the fighting during that month. This may relate to statements that were made by U.S. President Biden, saying that Israel agreed to halt fighting during Ramadan in order to allow the release of hostages. It was speculated at that time that Biden is referring to Israel's agreement to not invade Rafah before a hostage deal. Unclear. Israel's cabinets, at least some ministers, are insisting that Israel continue the war if no hostage deal is reached. Regarding casualties, no IDF soldiers are reported killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours. The total number of IDF soldiers killed in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began remains 242. One IDF soldier was injured in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours. The total number of IDF soldiers injured in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began is 1,432. The Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip is reporting that 193 Palestinians were killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours. This now involves the number of Palestinians that were killed in that aid truck incident that I reported on yesterday. This brings the total number of Palestinians killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began to 30,228. 920 Palestinians are reported injured in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours. The total number of Palestinians injured in the Gaza Strip since the war began is 71,377. Moving on to the humanitarian situation, the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip reported that 4 more children died in the Gaza Strip as a result of dehydration and malnutrition. While it was not reported where this happened, it may be in the Kamal Adwan or Al-Shifa hospitals in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, where it was reported in the last several days that babies are in critical condition due to these reasons. Other news related to the humanitarian situation, Jordan carried out another paradropping of aid into the Gaza Strip today, this time in the northern parts of the Strip. In addition, the Egyptian newspaper Al-Qahara Al-Akhbariya reported that the joint paradrops of Egypt, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates will resume tomorrow, adding that 6.7 tons of aid, including food, medicines, and emergency equipment, are expected to be dropped in the Jabalia refugee camp area that is in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip as well. It's noteworthy that this may also include France and other countries. In the previous statements put out by Egypt, they only stated the Arab countries that were participating in these paradrops, even though in the previous missions it also included France and different Western countries, so it may be that other countries will be involved. At this point, it's unknown, but these missions are supposed to continue tomorrow, specifically in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip. Other news related to the aid truck incident yesterday, the White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby stated that the United States does not currently have enough information to confirm the IDF's report that the main cause of Palestinian deaths was trampling over each other and being hit by the aid trucks. While President Biden stated that he trusts Israel will conduct a thorough investigation of the matter, the United Nations, the EU, and France all called today for an independent inquiry into what happened. The EU also announced that due to the critical conditions in the Gaza Strip, it is going to transfer the 50 million euros to UNRWA that was part of the budget that was going to transfer this month. However, it stated that the full sum of 82 million euros is not going to be transferred until the concerns that were raised about UNRWA's employees being involved in October 7th in terrorism are addressed. Amidst this, the United States also announced today that it is going to begin paradropping missions of its own of aid into the Gaza Strip, and that the first one, which will be coordinated with the IDF, will be focused on paradropping food aid. The White House also stated that the U.S. is going to double its efforts to open a maritime corridor for humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. This is something that was mentioned by Israel already several months ago as a possibility between Cyprus and Israel opening some sort of humanitarian corridor. However, negotiations never actually came to fruition. It is possible that as the IDF has taken more control of the coastlines of the Gaza Strip, this will be something that the IDF manages to coordinate with different international aid agencies. It remains to be seen. Moving on to the West Bank, there was substantial IDF activity reported in the Kalkilia area in the last 24 hours. Other activity was reported in the Aqaba Jabbar near Jericho, in the Jabba area that is near Jenin, and in Salfit. There were no reports made, however, regarding how many arrests were made or Palestinian injuries in these different operations. Other news related to the West Bank. There's ongoing uproar in Israel's cabinet about the Shabak's decision to release 40 Palestinian prisoners who were held in administrative custody in IDF jails. This happened yesterday. According to the Shabak, this was done in order to vacate rooms in Israeli jails in light of the upcoming month of Ramadan and expected arrests. However, in Israel's hardline government, there have been a lot of allegations that this was done as a gesture to Palestinians. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir chastised the head of the Shabak during a meeting today, stating that if he lacks room in jails, he can release the Jews who are held in administrative custody rather than Palestinians. Other news, the IDF announced today that it has completed its preparation for the scenarios for escalations that may occur in the West Bank during the month of Ramadan. Amidst this, the Israeli cabinet meeting on the subject, again, Itamar Ben-Gvir, as well as Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, demanded that restrictions be imposed on Palestinians during Ramadan and checkpoints and blockades be reinstated. Other news related to the West Bank. Following the attack in the Eli settlement yesterday, Israeli settlers established an unauthorized settlement on a hill between the settlements of Levona and Givat HaRoeh. This is the same spot where an unauthorized outpost was established after the last terror attack in Eli. It was since dismantled, however, now settlers have again rebuilt it. It remains to be seen if it will actually be dismantled at this time, because right now the minister who's technically in charge of this is Defense Minister Yoav Gallant in Israel. However, there's also Bezalel Smotrich, who is a minister in the Ministry of Defense, and he also has some authority over whether settlements are dismantled or not. Moving on to the northern parts of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon. There were continuous rockets and missiles sent from Lebanon targeting the northern parts of Israel today. These targeted the areas of Zarit, Shomra, Arab el-Ramshe, Margaliot, Kibbutz Menara, and Ramim. In addition, there was also a drone attack that was noted in the Mayan Baruch area. Hezbollah claimed a total of 7 shooting and firing incidents. This includes also attacks that were carried out against IDF outposts along the border. Hezbollah also stated that it managed to intercept and down an IDF drone in Lebanon. This was not confirmed or denied by the IDF. Regarding IDF activity, IDF warplanes carried out a combined attack with artillery fire, targeting Hezbollah military structures in the Ramia village. The Saudi Al-Hadith reported that 5 Hezbollah operatives were killed in these attacks. This was not confirmed by the Hezbollah movement. In addition, a series of attacks targeting Hezbollah structures and infrastructure were carried out in Ita Sha'ab and Jabal Balat as well. In addition to this, El Mian reported that the IDF carried out attacks in the Bleda village in the areas of Anabatia, as well as drone attacks in the El Mansuri region. It was not reported what the targets of these attacks were. Other news, Al Akhbar, which is a Hezbollah affiliate, published a report today seemingly answering the statements of Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati yesterday. So yesterday Najib Mikati stated that diplomatic resolution with Israel will be possible. He did link this to a possible ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. However, he also stated that the U.S. Special Envoy to the area, Amos Hochstein, would be returning soon. Responding to this, in the Al-Ahbar report, it was stated that negotiators have understood that it is futile to negotiate a diplomatic solution while there is no ceasefire in Gaza, and explicitly stated that if no ceasefire is reached, Hochstein will not be returning to Lebanon. Other news related to Syria. An attack was carried out in the Banyas area. This is the northwest region of Syria. Al-Arabi al-Jadid reported that 3 Hezbollah commanders and a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps were killed in this attack. The report quotes opposition sources in Syria stating that the attack involved missiles targeting the Ad-Dabel villas, which were, according to this report, rented out a few days ago to Hezbollah commanders who moved from the Asaida Zainab region due to IDF attacks in that region. The Iranian news agency IRNA seemingly confirmed some of this report, stating that Raza Zahari, a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's Navy and the person in charge for maritime transport between Iran and Syria, was killed in this region. Uncharacteristically, it's important to note that the Syrian media did not report anything about this attack. It was not stated anywhere, nor was it stated that the Syrian military intercepted these missiles. Moving on to some of the political and general trends of the last 24 hours. The Council for Protection of Journalists, CPJ, sent an open letter today calling upon Israel to ensure the protection of journalists and reporters in the Gaza Strip. This was signed by 94 journalists and editors from 54 leading news outlets in the world, including the Associated Press, Reuters, AFP, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, BBC, and many others. They note that 94 journalists have been killed in the war, 89 of them Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Importantly, Israel has in the past contested the claims of some of those who were killed, stating that while they were technically employed as journalists, there is also photo evidence that shows they participated in violent activity with Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad while they were still employed as journalists. However, the Council for Protection of Journalists states that many journalists were killed while fulfilling their jobs simply as journalists. Other political news. Minister Gantz of Israel's war cabinet is due to travel to the United States next week in a series of meetings before continuing to London for more meetings. This comes at a very interesting and critical political time as hostage negotiations appear to be stalled and the United States was reportedly been growing more frustrated with Prime Minister Netanyahu and more suspicious that he is bound by his hawkish government and may actually try to torpedo the deal for political gain. Minister Gantz, in turn, has openly favored a deal prior to the Rafah invasion, which is what the United States would also like to see. In Israel, Netanyahu's office was livid at the reports that Minister Gantz is going to travel to the United States, stating that the trip was not coordinated with Netanyahu as is required by law. And in the response given by reportedly sources close to Netanyahu, they say that Netanyahu clarified to Gantz that Israel has only one prime minister. Amidst this, there was a report in NBC today stating that President Biden is under monumental pressure to adjust policies and apply more pressure on Netanyahu personally and Israel more broadly with regards to the war and with the ceasefire in particular. While Biden at this point does not appear to be budging, the report states that a series of meetings have been held, led by the National Security Council advisor Jake Sullivan, regarding both sticks that can be applied against Israel, as well as carrots, depending on developments. Alongside this, other reports today quoted senior U.S. officials say that if the U.S. identifies that Netanyahu forestalls a deal due to political reasons, there will be an extreme escalation in the collision between Biden and Netanyahu in the near future. Other political news: the ongoing condemnations of the aid truck incident continue. Brazil stated today that the IDF has no ethical or moral limits, and there were diplomatic blows traded between Turkey and Israel as Israeli Foreign Minister advised Erdogan to stop talking about genocide while he's committing genocide against the Kurds, and Turkey in turn stated that soon enough all of Israel's ministers will be on the defendant's seat in court for genocide. Other news: protests in Israel in favor of a hostage deal continued today as family members continued their march towards Jerusalem. Minister Gantz joined them today. Simultaneously, other protests were held in front of the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv, where the protesters publicly thanked and supported President Biden, stating that he is more committed to returning the hostages than the Israeli government. Other news: the United States blocked the Security Council statement condemning Israel for the aid truck incident, demanding that it be changed and not place all the blame on Israel, at least not directly by name. Other political news: Nicaragua submitted a lawsuit in the ICJ against Germany today, stating that it is assisting Israel politically, economically, and militarily in carrying out genocide in the Gaza Strip. Another political news: Progressive International, which is a network of left-wing lawmakers around the world, circulated declarations signed by 200 parliamentarians from 12 different countries, who all signed a letter saying they will pressure their governments to stop weapons exports to Israel. Moving on to the future of the Gaza Strip, the summit meeting of Palestinian factions in Russia concluded today without concrete resolutions. However, in a joint statement at the end of the summit, the factions, including most importantly Fatah, Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, stated that the talks were held in a very positive atmosphere and they will continue. They added, and I quote, "The dialogue is close to arriving at a general national unity, which will include all Palestinian forces and factions under the Palestine Liberation Organization, that is the PLO, the only legitimate representative of the Palestinian people." End quote. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov added that this statement was agreed upon in writing as well. This is very important for several reasons. First, it shows that even though Hamas openly defines the Palestine Liberation Organization, it recognizes the importance of showing Palestinian unity at this moment, which is important when you consider where the war is going in the future of the Gaza Strip. In addition, it is also meant to be broadcasted outwards towards the United States, showing that the PLO, which is headed by the Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas, is working to bring all factions together under one banner. This is vital, as such reforms are what the Palestinian Authority hopes to show the United States as part of the expected hope for the future, that the U.S. will recognize the Palestinian state and compel Israel to reinstate the Palestinian Authority in the Gaza Strip. So again, if we conclude what we can learn from this summit, while in fact no actual resolutions were reached regarding if Hamas is going to join the Palestine Liberation Organization and how this will happen, the fact that in writing Hamas has recognized that the PLO is the only legitimate representative of the Palestinian people on the one hand, and on the other hand all the sides are agreeing to continue negotiations and are talking about a unity, possibly a unity government, or Hamas joining the PLO, this will prove vital for the future of the Gaza Strip, as it may be enough for the leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization and the chairman of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, to then come to the United States and say, I am carrying out these reforms in order to bring unity to the Palestinian people and stop the divide among the different factions. Now I want you to in turn apply pressure on Israel and work towards adding the Palestinian Authority as part of the future resolution of the Gaza Strip towards an independent Palestinian state, possibly in the future. If you enjoyed these reports, please do remember to subscribe, give them a like. If you want to know when reports come out, turn on notifications. If you have questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.